Hi beloveds, I'm super excited for this video because I'm going to be answering some of the questions that I've been asked, like how did you start writing your first book, what are the steps that you took, and eventually I'm also going to do another series on how to publish your book in South Africa and of course online. So in today's video, I'm just going to be talking about my writing journey, when I started and how I got to, I guess, finally self-publishing my own book called Living Consciously, by Yvette Ratshikhopha, which is me. And yeah, it's a guide to healing your past, finding your purpose, and manifesting the life that you want. So guys, this is literally my first baby, which I'm really proud of, right? And I'm moving a lot, so let me try and sit still. I think it's just the excitement in me. So stay with me, right? So if you probably have these questions about how do I start writing my first book? So for me, it was pretty simple because I'd already written so many tweets on Twitter and so many posts on my Instagram. And I've been writing since I was 9 years old, to be honest. And it started with just small things like poetry, songs, all of that. And throughout my life, then eventually that turned into a big following on my social media, which is also something that I write about in my book. It started with a big following on my social media and that growing slowly. And then eventually people asking me, Yvette, do you have a book? And when I heard them saying that, I was like, ooh, universe, I hear you. Let me go and actually write down this book. So I went and I started writing the book. So that's the first thing, right? So before I started writing my book, I asked myself, what are my intentions in writing this book? What do I want to achieve with it, right? And that's why I guess the title, well, that's the wrong side. The title here says a guide to healing your past, finding your purpose, and manifesting the life that you want, because that was my intention. I wanted to create something that was a guide that helps people to heal their past, right? To create the life that they want. As an author, life coach, or somebody that helps people in their healing journeys, I realized that a lot of people do not have access to, I guess, healing, right? They don't have the money to go to a therapist. So I thought I wanted to do something or create something that would allow people to be able to heal themselves while they're at home at a really affordable cost, right? So that's my intention, and so that's the first thing that you need to do when you are planning to write your book, is to first understand your why. It can't be because people on Twitter asked you to write a book. Of course, that was a contribution, because I feel like that was a sign that I needed to actually take this thing seriously. But also, apart from that, you need to know your own why. Why is it important for you to get started on this project? Because later on, when you're writing this book and you get stuck, if your bigger why was, oh, I just want to make money, or if I just want to do this, and I just want to make money, at least is also a good reason, because again, it has to do with you and not just what other people expect, etc. So it's quite important to set your intention and say, okay, why do I want to write this book? So that's the first thing that I did. The next thing is that I started to look into the material that I already had, right? So then I looked into some of the tweets that got a lot of retweets. I looked at some of the content that people really liked on my Twitter and Instagram, and then I started creating chapters based on that. So the first thing that you need to do, even if you don't have material out there, think of topics that when you talk about them, your face lights up and people start listening, right? They're things that are consistent when you communicate with people or when you work with people, whether you're in business, you're an entrepreneur, or you're in the self-help space, or you're just a writer in different spaces. Look into what are some of the things that people are really interested in knowing about things that you write about, right? So go back to that and then start creating the chapter. So what I then did, which I'm not saying is the only way to do it, but I think it really worked, served me well, because before I went into the chapters, I wrote down the names of each different chapter. Of course, I added a few more moving along, and as I worked with different editors, etc., on a later basis, then we divided some of the chapters in different ways. But the thing that really helped me is to divide and write down the different chapters, even though you don't have content for it, right? And then if you already do have content, then writing some of that stuff down. So what I did is I took some of my content, I wrote that down, and then I added to it, right, as I moved, right? So how do I end up with a book that is, I think it's over 200 pages long. It's not really a difficult book to read, to be honest. So if you look at it, it also has just pages with like quotes and all of that. So I really wanted this to be a light read, easy read, and all of that, and to feel like a conversation, right? So as I was writing, what I did was I just went and I filled in the spaces with the content that I already had, and then I added to it. So how did I actually build and add to the content that I already had? So what I did in order to add to the content that I already had is that I went, I set a goal for myself to say, okay, so one of the things that I also did in the beginning of the journey, as I decided to become an author, I decided my launch date, right? Which was supposed to be the 26th of March, 2020. And because of the pandemic that is happening, of course, COVID-19 and all of that, my book launch still happened, but it moved to virtual instead, and some of the things had to change. But the other thing that you really need to know, apart from your intentions, the other thing really, if you are going to take anything from this video, right, it has to be this, that know like what you want out of it and set your launch date, to be honest, so that you have something that you're working towards. So for me, it made it easier to actually just say, okay, because I'm goal orientated, because I really like to achieve some of the goals that I set for myself, and because I understood the importance of this book coming out for me. I mean, it would really help in terms of the work that I do as an author, speaker, and just really solidify my portfolio as well as somebody who's reliable in the spaces that I work in. So I took that and I said, okay, I'm going to launch my book on this specific date, and I worked backwards from that date, and I decided, okay, I'm going to write a specific amount on a daily basis or over weekends. Of course, your schedule changes over time, right? So that's another thing about writing. You have to have grace for yourself, because sometimes you go through things and you get busy. I mean, I was writing my book while going through a lot in my own personal life. I was also building a business development agency at the time. So I was doing marketing work and working with different clients and helping people build their businesses. I was also doing one-on-one coaching, and I would do my workshops, and I was doing speaking engagements, right? So you have to also understand that there's grace, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't plan your time ahead in terms of writing. So plan your day, your writing. So whether you're going to take a few retreats, if you really struggle and you live with a busy household, or you have a really busy schedule, sometimes you're going to have to be really intentional about actually creating a space for you to write, right? So I used to go to libraries so that I can get some inspiration. I'd go to exclusive books in South Africa and just sit there and start writing. I'd also go to different spots which really added to my creativity, where I could see all these creatives and different spaces in Johannesburg that would just allow me to get all my creative juices going, right? So be intentional about setting time to write. It's not just gonna happen, right? Because I think sometimes people think that you wake up and you're just like, oh, I have a 200-page book. I think sometimes it does happen that way, but either way, you still have to construct something, and as you construct that thing, you're gonna have to be very intentional about it. So be intentional about setting a date by when you want to release the book, so that you're not writing this book for 20 years. I mean, unless that's exactly what you want and you're not trying to have a specific date whereby you release the book. And also just set out whether it's writing 10 words, 10 pages daily, or a page weekly. It doesn't matter. Just decide what your pace is and what will work according to your schedule. If you're really struggling, I really advise that you try to go away. I remember when I was completing my book, I actually went away and I was on a solo retreat, and I did all these amazing like travel things while I just sat. So I was being really romantic with myself, doing an eat, pray, love type of thing, but also really doing some of the work that I needed to do and creating that space, because it was really tricky for me to just continue writing while also being surrounded with so much stuff going on around me. So I guess for this video, the two main things or three main things, I don't know how many things I actually mentioned, is that just one, know your intention, set your why. Two, write down your chapters in advance so that you know what the theme of the book is, right? Three, also decide the dates and also decide your pace. Are you going to write weekly? Are you going to write daily? Are you going to write monthly? And how are you? So I think I was just talking about, before my phone memory got full and I had to join the videos, I was talking about also know your pace, right? That is one of the most important things that you need to know your pace and be intentional about actually creating this book. And I think the one thing that I also want to mention in this first, all right, So once you know your intentions, once you've set your pace, once you've set your launch date, and once you know your bigger why, right? I think it's also quite important that you know who you're writing this book for, because that's going to decide the tonality of the book and etc. etc. So when you're writing your book, you want to know who is it for. For me, it's for people that want to heal, people who are into personal development, people who want to change their lives but don't know where to start, right? So whether this is in different areas of their lives, and my book specifically focuses on the past experiences that we've been into and healing those experiences. So I think that should get you started on your journey, right? Know your bigger why. And I think also understand that your book is about you, and whatever it is that you have to share, there's somebody that can benefit from that. So it doesn't have to be perfect for you to start. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the knowledge. You don't have to have all the degrees. You really don't have to have all the writing experience. You just need to have a story that you want to share and understand that there's value in that story. So if you take anything from this video as well, take the fact that your story is valuable and somebody can benefit, learn and grow through it, right? And that's why I always encourage anybody that watches some of my personal development videos to really just document their journey, and eventually that might turn into a book. So when you set your intentions, I think just also understand that there's value in your story, whatever that story is, whether it's a fictional story, whether it's the story of how you built your business, whether it's the story of how you started healing, or whether you're a professional who has certain healing methods or working methods or tools and experiences that can help others. That's a story which is valuable, and people can heal and learn from that. So you don't need to be perfect in order to start writing. You just have to have a story, and each and every one of us has a story to tell. So that is it from me today. Yvette Ratshikhopha, author, life coach, and entrepreneur, and wellness educator. And yeah, I hope this video was really helpful. Let me know in the comments what other questions you may have, so that when I create the next video, then I can speak directly into the questions that you have. So if you have any questions about writing your first book, this was just an intro video that I wanted to do because I've been really meaning to do this and I just haven't had the time. But yeah, if you found this beneficial to you, please comment with what specific questions you have about writing, publishing, self-publishing specifically, because I haven't worked with a publishing house. And I think I'll also just create more videos about my self-publishing journey in future videos, but also just let me know if this video was helpful. And again, you have a story, and the bigger thing is that you start getting out there and you start writing. Your book doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to overthink it. The writing process is actually much easier, and don't focus so much on using big jargon and using big words. Just focus on telling your story, and just know that there's value in that story. So that's all from me today. I'm sending you off with love, and I guess until next time, trust the process.